Welcome to the Intimate Marriage Podcast, where I teach educated, successful couples how to have incredible, passionate relationships so that you can stop compromising and start feeling fully alive in your relationship. I'm your host, Alexandra Stockwell, aka the Intimacy Doctor. I'm a physician and an intimate marriage expert. My husband and I have been married for 26 years. We have 4 children and full professional lives, and we've created an amazing relationship. I've also shown hundreds of couples how to do so as well. If you want to deepen your understanding of your own relationship and learn to access new heights of emotional, sensual, and erotic intimacy, you're in the right place. I will show you how. Now let's dive in. I'm over here blushing because Rod, my husband of 26 years, and I are about to record this episode, but we have had such a full day. I'm not going to take the time to describe everything I did and then invite him to say everything he did, but let me just say we have very, very full lives. I have been go since I got up. I got up actually at 7:15 this morning, which was a deliciously late morning, and I have been go, and it is now 9:40 p.m. However, we really needed to record this episode, so we're sitting down in my office to record the episode, but I was really aware that, yes, we love one another deeply. We have an extraordinary marriage, and I felt like a little disconnected to dive into sharing things with you and revealing the juicy stuff. So what did I do? I turned to you and said,
let's make out.
Let's make out. So coming to you fresh from a beautiful makeout, my body is tingling. I feel like I'm blushing. I didn't check in the mirror to see how it looks, but my cheeks feel flushed. And the reason that I'm starting this podcast by saying that is how we live. We don't go sit on the mountaintop or have all this extra time for date nights. What we do is, through practice and through each of us clearing our resentments so that they don't get in the way, we have learned to transition quickly into connecting with one another when the opportunity arises. So that is my introduction to my fabulous, hardworking, devoted, incredible husband who has, despite the fact that he likes to be brushing his teeth and getting ready for bed at this hour so he can get up in time to meditate and accomplish a whole bunch of things before leaving for work at 7:15, he's here as a gift to me and a gift to you recording this podcast episode. Any comments on how we just transitioned and anything else of relevance for you in this moment?
I love it. It's just the whole point is to not get lost in the unimportant and to be able to connect to what is important and matters quickly.
Yeah, will you share that whole graph that we learned in medical school from one of our attendings? One of the doctors who was one of our teachers is the first person to teach us about the difference between important, urgent, non-urgent, and unimportant matters. This is not unique to him. This is something that maybe you've already heard before, but in case not, will you explain it?
Yeah, so it's a 2x2 grid, and something can be important or not, and something can be urgent or not. And so some things are neither important nor urgent. Some things are both important and urgent. But the trick is for the things that are important but not urgent to actually get the attention they need. So the things that are urgent and absolutely not important at all don't monopolize life and kind of suck the life out of life.
Yeah, will you say anything more about how that pertains or how that previously played out in our marriage? I don't even know if you have a response. I do, but I want to ask you first.
Well, I just know from working, from parenting, from so many contexts, there are all these things that can pull on my attention. And it's a 3-year-old who's whining, or it's a patient who's in front of me who's wanting help with something. And then I don't, I just get pulled from one thing to another, but I'm missing attending to the things that are important, and that if I do that for too long or too many days in a row, I just feel empty inside. And that's what we're talking about not doing, is being lost in the mundane things.
This episode is sponsored by the Aligned and Hot Marriage Program, my signature program designed for busy, educated couples who want to experience more closeness, more connection, and more passion. Go to theintimatemarriage.com for all the juicy details. Yeah, and I think that we had a phase. I mean, now you say if it happens for a few days, then you attend to it. But we had, I don't know if this is accurate, but we've had years, not maybe, not consistently over years, but years where that was the more dominant thing, where we were pulled from one urgent thing to another. And what I would add is that then the sense of not being as connected as we wanted to be, or as I wanted to be, I'll just say, became something urgent. It became something that just drove me crazy, and I didn't initially know how to handle it. And so I would mostly say nothing and compromise and be polite, and then it would just explode out of me. But that wouldn't actually accomplish the goal of having more connection, because, no surprise, just like exploding with frustration and how dissatisfied I was, somehow didn't result in you and me feeling connected. And
It just looked scary. And I wanted to run away.
right, those were the days when you referred to me as having lots of landmines. Like you never knew which day I was just going to explode with blame and frustration. And explode is a relative term. We mostly have not had a lot of drama in our relationship, but emotionally, it felt more like a volcano than it actually was by any objective metric. But
And I just think that there's this feeling of like feeling dead inside, feeling like life doesn't have meaning and things are empty from spending too much time on the unimportant things. And actually exploding or letting out some of the frustration is a step forward from there. It's just not the end goal.
okay, well, I have to say that when I took that step forward, I didn't always get the positive feedback that you're giving in hindsight, but that was our dynamic. You tended to withdraw and contract. I tended to make do and then get intense and a little more dramatic about it. But we can laugh about this because this just is not our dynamic now. And I don't even know that I'd ever really be thinking about it if I wasn't specifically focused on serving couples who are still in that dynamic, in that paradigm. And so I'm really interested in what happens and how to get out of it.
I don't think we even knew that we were stuck in a paradigm. We just thought that's how life was. I didn't know that there were other kinds of paradigms that you can operate in that were so much more functional.
Yeah, I didn't, like, we were stuck in it without realizing it. And I thought there was something wrong with you.
Well, I just thought there was something wrong with you.
Yes, so there you have it. So
Not me.
we have really transformed. And I have to say that I just adore the name of my signature program, the Aligned and Hot Marriage Program, because I think it really reflects what we have built. And in our case, while they were close sequentially, focusing on more alignment with one another definitely preceded the hotness. Now, hotness wasn't that far behind, but it's the Aligned and Hot Marriage Program. There's a reason aligned is the first word and hot comes after. And this is really why I have been sharing in the prior episodes the 6 keys to an intimate marriage, because these 6 keys are exactly the steps to take to create the alignment that then opens up for the hot. Anything you would say before we continue more in that direction?
Yeah, I just think it's super helpful to have, at least as the guy, to have the manual, the cookbook, the guide, the path that's laid out there of, okay, this is how you do it, and let's just go ahead and make it happen that way. It's like pulling up a YouTube video and how to make a deck or something and have it laid out step by step. You get the overview and then you can make it happen. It's much easier when you have the guide map.
I love that you say that, because in fact, I didn't expect to be talking about the Aligned and Hot Marriage Program so much in our conversation, but I just want to say that it's very intentionally designed so that it speaks to people of all different kinds of learners. Like, sure, often it is in a heteronormative relationship, the man who likes things to be sequential, clear, and logical, although it's certainly not only the men. And especially for power couples and super educated couples, it's often the woman who is like, it has got to be laid out, it has got to be logical, it has got to be scientifically based. So regardless, in our relationship, you really embody that. And while I love things being logical, that is not necessary for me in my learning, and especially in my learning about relationships. Like, I don't mind just like picking up more. I'm more like a butterfly in my relationship learning, like a little bit of nectar from this inspiring flower and a little bit of nectar from that. But in putting it together and being able to coach other people, I absolutely am devoted to having it laid out like a guidebook, as you were just describing. And the Aligned and Hot Marriage Program is set up in that way, with really clear instructional teaching, as well as some stories for the people who like a little inspiration and nectar from each of the flowers, each of the inspiring stories, and to have some imagination for how to apply things. And I have to say, I'm very grateful for you, because this really was one of the biggest frustrations that left me heartbroken often in way back years ago, because I would have a sense of how I wanted things to feel in our marriage and how I wanted us to be with one another. But my describing the feeling, or even not describing it and just wanting you to understand it too, led to so much frustration. And you really did call forth a clarity and a sequential description when it comes to how to be in a marriage. And really, you made it worth it, because as soon as I got clear and logical in my communication about these things, you showed up in the most beautiful ways.
And I really just was amazing to me how cultivating a few simple like skills, like how to listen to you talk about anything without interpreting it mentally as if you were blaming me. Just to have that ability to do that opened up this whole other way of being together and relating, because I didn't realize that I always had that habit of thinking if you were talking about your emotions or something that was going on, then I must have done something wrong. And so having it held up of, no, that's not the best way to do it. There's this other better way to do it. And then practicing it and getting good at it made the biggest difference.
Yes, so that is definitely, well, it weaves into all six keys, but when you say that, just right off the bat, I think about cultivate curiosity.
Yes.
Okay. Because with cultivate curiosity, then you learn to listen, and it's not about you. It's about just opening and listening generously to know what the other person is saying. What would you say about embrace honesty?
I mean, what I was going to say is that when I think about that exercise, I think about taking responsibility, because it's about realizing that this is not just about what you're saying or how I'm receiving it. It's a moment of our relationship, and I'm taking responsibility to have our interaction also support our relationship.
Okay, you know what? I've never done this before. I'm super excited about it because cultivate curiosity, embrace honesty, be kind, choose happiness, take responsibility, and seek growth. Those are the six keys to an intimate marriage. And as I often say, I lay them out sequentially so that anyone who learns the way you do can understand them and dive into each one and be able to practice and achieve mastery. It's why I go so deep into these things in the Aligned and Hot Marriage program. But it is also true that they really weave together and are kind of one fascinating synergistic blend. And
They're all there in that one exercise.
that's the whole thing. So let's take us to the situation where I have a lot of emotions, I'm expressing myself, and you just feel blamed. And so I'm saying that's a time when you would need to cultivate curiosity, because then you can listen and just pay attention to what my experience is without interpreting it and feeling afraid or scared or blamed or wanting to run away. That when you cultivate curiosity, you can just listen to what I'm saying and hear something you maybe haven't heard before.
But the honesty part is you're being willing to say what's true for you, and me being willing to hear what's true for my partner, and then figure out what to do about it, as opposed to trying to do both at the same time. Like, okay, let's just hear what the truth is.
Yes, so you have to be curious. And I love what you've already said about taking responsibility. And for me, one of the important ways to take responsibility in that kind of a moment when I've got a lot of emotions running is to, first of all, not just dial it down and ignore it and deny it and essentially compromise. No, to embrace honesty and really say the fullness of what I want you to know, and to be kind, because how I say it is going to make all of the difference in whether or not, when you're curious and taking responsibility, we get to have a positive interaction. If I don't prioritize be kind, that unravels the whole thing.
Well, and it's also not just the tone, but it's the assumption of kindness, that I think that you're trying to be kind when you're speaking. I'm looking for the kindness behind what you're saying. And I'm also being kind to myself in how I receive it, and not hurting myself or undermining myself, which is part of the choose happiness element, which is that we realize that this interaction has a way of moving towards us having more happiness. And so therefore we can look for that solution and not feel like it's the same old thing or it's undermining. Seeking growth means you're being willing to talk about what's true and not just give up on it, and me being willing to receive what's true and think that there's a way that we can come to a new, better way of being and not being stuck in the old way.
Yeah, and so if this is the very first time that you are listening to the Intimate Marriage Podcast, well, first of all, welcome. I'm glad you're here. I'd love it if you would subscribe, leave a rating and a review, and I warmly, warmly invite you to go back and listen to the past 12 episodes, but at least the past 6, where I go into lots of detail about each of the 6 keys to an intimate marriage. And if you've been here before, you've listened before, you're a loyal listener. Well, if you haven't subscribed, left a rating or a review, I invite you, request that you do that as well. But I hope that, as someone who's heard those other episodes and really heard me go deep into each of these 6 keys, that you can enjoy how we're not compartmentalizing each of the 6 keys, but in navigating a challenging moment, or what I really should say is a challenging pattern, then we have a fluidity in using all 6 keys to open the door to feel more connection. And having practiced this, we now are at the point where, we did not feel connected 10 minutes before we started recording. In fact, there was a question about when we would start recording, and it could have led to my feeling rejected or having hurt feelings. But no, I remember he's helping me with this. We're on the same team, and let's make out so that we're naturally connected when we have this conversation.
And then we're both happier.
Yes, exactly. So anything that comes to mind, like a moment where you realized, wow, we've come so far. I can be full of emotional expression, and you stand like a tall oak without cracking in the storm.
Well, for me, one moment was when we finally had a fight and got to the other side of the fight and both felt more connected to each other afterwards. I never believed that conflict could lead to connection until I experienced it the first time. I thought it was a myth, like a Pegasus or a unicorn or something. I always believe that you run away, unconsciously, that you run away from conflict. And so to experience, there's something good, there's this pot of gold on the other side of it, it was a moment of, oh my goodness, we're in new terrain here and I like it better.
Okay, that is so beautiful, because having a fantastic relationship is a learnable skill. And I really think that the essential thing is to find the right education so that you can develop the skill. And every one of my programs, certainly the Aligned in Hot Marriage program, and all of them are devoted to giving you the skills, teaching you the skills so that you can practice them and end up having the same revelation that you have, sweetheart, about how conflict can lead to connection. Now, let's just be very clear. Conflict doesn't inevitably lead to connection, but the fact that it's possible ever is completely empowering and makes it so good to be in a relationship with you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Intimate Marriage Podcast. If you're ready to deepen your relationship and create a truly intimate, delicious, and vibrant marriage, head over to alexandrastockwell.com and choose the program that's right for you.